I started my volunteer fire service in the Yorkville Volunteer Fire Department, where I met some great friends. I knew right there that the volunteer fire service was for me. Then I married my wife, Sarah, and we moved to our neighboring community, where I joined the Whitesboro Volunteer Fire Department and currently a 42-year member there. I served under some great fire chiefs, where I learned so much about fire service leadership. I worked my way from lieutenant right to the fire chief position, and now serving as captain in the training division. I served as a director to the Firemen's Association of the State of New York, and now as the New York State Director to the NBFC, where I serve on the executive committee and also chair the Firefighter Cancer Subcommittee. There I met a great friend who passed away due to occupational cancer. Chief James Seavey, Sr., a good friend who preached to many the reasons why we needed to take up the fight against occupational cancer. I will never forget Jimmy. In October of 2014, my wife recognized the growth on the left side of my neck. I had a cold at that time, so we thought it was the result of the cold. It did not get better, so I went to my doctor, and he thought it might be from the cold as well. So he gave me some medication and had me come back if it did not get any better. It did not. So back again in 3 weeks, where he sent me for a scan of my neck and my throat. He didn't like what he saw, and there he sent me to an ear, nose, and throat doctor, where after a short and long needle biopsies, the news no one ever wants to hear, he met with Sarah and I and told us that I do have cancer. It's B-cell, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in my neck. He closed his folder, walked out the door, and we walked out that office, hand in hand, tears rolling down our cheeks, thinking, do I begin my obituary? Would I ever see my grandchild? Why me? Why us? Why cancer? I had recently retired from my administrative job with the Whitesboro Central School District before coming down with cancer. I was contacted by my assistant chief's wife, who worked for me when I was a principal, and told me her teaching aide's husband went to Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York City with throat cancer, and now is cancer-free. I did not want to leave my family and my community because it meant the world to me. But it was my son who explained to me why I need to go away. If it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be here today to tell the story. So we researched Sloan Kettering and discussed it. And the next day, I self-admitted myself into Sloan Kettering in New York City. And in 2 weeks, we were there for 2 days of tests. We sat across from 5 oncologists who drilled me with questions. And when I told them at that time I was a 36-year volunteer firefighter, their questions changed. They asked me all about the job I did as a volunteer, my training, the fires that I was in, and much, much more. I couldn't remember everything. They then left the room, did some research, and in 3.5 hours they came back to meet with us. And at that time they confirmed my diagnosis by Dr. Joachim Yahalem, my oncologist, who told me B-cell lymphoma was one of the fastest growing cancers in the fire service today. He also told me that cancer had traveled into part of my thyroid. I was devastated. I looked at Sarah and said to her, the job I love, helping those in need, could actually be killing me. My treatments made me live in a hotel for 7 weeks in New York City. We came home on weekends and back to New York City on Sundays. Each day of intensified modulated radiation therapy wore me out. I wasn't hungry. My mouth was full of sores. I would sleep 3 to 5 hours after treatments. And I'll be honest with you, there were many nights that I cried myself to sleep. I wanted it to end. I wanted to do away with all the treatments. I wanted to go home. And when I had time after the treatments, I would just sit down and write about the day and my treatments. And I turned those writings into a book called You Gotta Believe. My friends of mine from the Floyd Fire Department have given my wife cards that I had to open each day after radiation, thinking that it would cheer me up, and it did. And they're just amazing friends. I had one of my students who I coached arrange for us to see a New York Knicks game to take my mind off the treatments. I can't thank him enough. It was a great day. Having a great group of firefighters in our county and Oneida County, chiefs from the Barneville and Deerfield fire departments wanted to do something to help defray the cost of my treatments by selling 400 helmet stickers. So I met with them and I applauded their efforts one weekend when I was home. But I told them to please take the proceeds and help other volunteer firefighters. I'm going to be fine. I knew from doing research that this cancer issue in the fire service is not going to go away. At that time, I was deputy fire coordinator in my county, and my card number was 271. And knowing that, believing that you can beat cancer, we named the foundation Believe 271. We were over 8,000 helmet stickers and car decals, all of them donated by a past volunteer fire chief from Deerfield. Knowing that this occupational cancer issue will impact so many others, we needed to form this foundation so that no one will ever fight cancer alone. To date, we've assisted 75 firefighters and their families and have paid out almost $275,000 in hopes of making their battles with cancer and their families so much better, all on a volunteer board. But realizing in New York State there was no cancer coverage for volunteer firefighters, while serving on the FASNY board as a director, I used to listen to the legislative reports every meeting stating the cancer bill gained no support. After returning to the board meetings following my treatments, my goal was to drive this bill proposal into law. I explained to the board the issues that volunteers will face with occupational cancer. It will not be going away. Not in New York State, not in this world. It's an epidemic. And thanks to FASNY and the New York State volunteers, this became a law 2 years ago. Serving as the FASNY rep to the National Volunteer Fire Council, Chief Seavey expressed an interest to have the National Volunteer Fire Council and the Volunteer Combination Officer Section Cancer Subcommittees meet about 3 years ago to begin their task of writing the Joint Lavender Ribbon Report, a report that exemplifies the 11 best practices for protecting firefighters from occupational cancer. This document should be embedded in every volunteer fire department's operating guidelines, trainings, and mentor programs. Leaving a document on a shelf or a drawer in a chief's office or in a training office is failed leadership in my book. For my brother and sister firefighters facing their battle with occupational cancer, don't give up. Use those you walk into battle with and your loved ones as your support group. Listen to the message. Cancer has no limitations. Young, old, male, female. I believe there were 3 things that got me through my battle: my family, my friends, and my faith in God. You beat cancer by how you live, why you live, and in the manner in which you live. Thank you.